You are listening to a special edition of the IU Report with Grant Shouse and Mike Hutsell. Their reaction to Indiana's 31-7 win over Wisconsin on Saturday.
Welcome back, Hoosier fans, to a special edition of the IU Report today with Grant Shouse and Mike Hutsell as we react to Indiana's 31-7 win over the Wisconsin Badgers on Saturday afternoon. And Mike, I got to tell you, this was a game that I felt like Indiana played horrible in the first half, did not play the way they're capable of playing. Second half absolutely dominated this team and still won convincingly 31-7. And give Wisconsin a lot of credit. They had a nice game plan coming in, which was, control the clock, kind of eat the time of possession away. This was a quick football game. Even being there, it felt like a really fast game. It only took 2 hours and 45 minutes to play the game. There was only, I think, maybe 2 or 3 penalties the entire game. The officiating was outstanding. And it wasn't on national television, so there's not a 3.5-minute commercial break every 15 minutes or so. So the game went quick. Indiana kind of had to play at maybe a little higher pace. Fernando Mendoza got sacked 5 times, Mike, 4 or 5 times, and still had one of the best performances of the season. Unbelievable.
I want to start the show off, if I can, by just checking in on my co-host. Are you doing okay? Are you better? At one point in the second quarter of the game, I get a text from Grant that says, "We're terrible. We suck. I'm preparing for the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Memphis or something."
That too.
Indiana made the fatal mistake of giving up a touchdown. I swear, man. What were they thinking, Grant? I can't.
It's at that point now, though, isn't it?
I read his text and was like, dude,
guys,
it's 7-7.
That's the thing, guys, is you did not see my reaction in the stadium. It was a whole lot worse than what I was doing over text. The reaction in the stadium was actually, when I look back on it, borderline embarrassing to me.
It's another stupid long touchdown that Indiana gives up, and they're good for those as we know, every now and then. But sometimes you got to tip your cap to the other team, and it was 4th and 1. Everybody in the stadium thinks Wisconsin's going to do the Wisconsin thing and run it off the guard and try to pick up and credit Luke Fickell, man, and the OC. They completely stunned everybody in the stadium and leaked the tight end out and got a long touchdown.
I think what I was more frustrated about was I felt like Indiana had kind of jacked around a little bit and played really conservative and was a little vanilla there. The first half was a little reminiscent. I feel like I say this every week, but this one really reminiscent of the first game against Old Dominion, where they just kind of jacked around. They kind of let them hang around. And then in the second half, they played really good in the second half. And again, pulled away and won convincingly. They held Wisconsin like 22 yards in the second half.
Right. And it was a very vanilla blah game by Indiana standards, especially offensively. But you saw a couple of times where 4th and 1 in between the 40s, where normally you think Indiana's automatically go for that, and they kicked. And I think that they knew if Wisconsin drove the field once, it wasn't going to happen again. That team they average like 12 points a game. There's no explosion. There's no threat of that turning into a track meet. Indiana knew if they just put enough points on the board, Wisconsin wasn't going to be able to match it. And like you said, it was 10-7 at half, and it was hilarious because I was watching other games and they're like, Indiana struggling with a 3-win team, when at the same time A&M was down 30-3 in their game, which cracked me up. But Indiana was never in danger of losing that game. Their quarterback, they gave up 24 points in the second half. Their quarterback had more touchdowns than incompletions. By double. It was 4 touchdowns, 2 incompletions. They just kind of played with their food a little bit, I feel like. And this is the end of 6 straight games for Indiana. And this was the toughest part of their schedule. They didn't have a bye week anywhere in there. They came out of the Illinois game, they had a bye. They went to Iowa, they went to Oregon. I think that was the order. It may have been the bye was in between those 2 games, but you do 6 straight games. They're obviously dinged up. They've missed Fisher for a couple of games. He came back. He's healthy. They haven't had Surratt since the first play of the Maryland game. Drew Evans not being on the line is absolutely killing them right now. So hopefully you're spending these next few weeks getting guys healthy, because the Big Ten title game is really hopefully the next game that truly matters. We got that inconvenience of having to go to West Lafayette on the schedule in 13 days, but 12 days.
Or they're up.
Yeah, sure, certainly. That's a different show. Like, it was never in doubt. Alabama beat Wisconsin 38-14. Indiana beat them 31-7. If you're matching, it's pretty similar. Wisconsin's not a team that, like I said, is ever going to be in any danger of beating you in a high-scoring shootout. But they've got guys on defense, and they've got some young guys on defense, where if you were watching the game at home, they talk about if these guys stay in the program, they could be all Big Ten level players. You're seeing improvement by Wisconsin. They're still not good. But Indiana they got done what they needed to get done. They got out of there, hopefully relatively healthy. There was a slight scare where you saw Mendoza run to the tent after he took what looked like a possible concussion-inducing hit. But it's 31-7. Grant is calmed down from his second quarter stroke, and we just move on from here.
When he went down, it was an immediate, like, I saw him go down and he was like slow to get up. I shot out of the seat and started yelling, no, 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 no. And then he got up, and then everyone around us is like, oh, they're taking him to the locker room. They're taking him to the locker room. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But then your mind goes to, well, it's a bye week. If there is a concussion or something of that case, then he's got this whole week to kind of recover. Concussions are sideline you for a week, 10 days. I've never had one.
He got up. He looked a little like wobbly on his feet, I thought, when he first stood up. It kind of looked like he wanted to go to the wrong sideline for a second. So I was like, he's done. He might not play the Purdue game, which they probably could win that game without him. Sorry, Greg. Sure. But thankfully, he went in, he got checked out, he came back in. I think he threw one more touchdown after that, and then they got him out of the game. So good on him. It was a slight scare at the end of a game that was just very blah.
I want to circle back to what you were saying there, Mike, about the bye week, and this is something I researched real quick before we jumped on here, is that you look at some of these teams that have their first bye week and then their time between their first and their second bye week and how many weeks in between there are. I want to tell you about a few programs here. Ohio State, their first bye week was in week 4. Their second bye week was in week 8. So you do the elementary school math, they had 4 weeks in between. Look at another team like Oregon. First bye wasn't until week 6. Their next bye was in week 9. They had those 3 weeks in between where they were playing. Purdue's first bye was in the 4th week of the season. Their next bye is now this week, 12 weeks. They played the most games in between their first bye week to their second bye week than any team in the conference. They play 8 straight games. Indiana's
and
first
it was
bye
stellar,
week,
let me tell you. It was a stellar stretch of games, let me tell you.
Yeah, and they couldn't win a single one.
They didn't play anybody in that stretch. They had several built-in buys, but they just couldn't get over the hump.
Right. Well, Indiana has 7 weeks in between their first bye to now this week's bye week. And that is so So important. Indiana needed this bye week so bad. And you heard Signetti after the game say that they needed this. Coaches are tired, players are tired, need some time off to rest. I would expect a light week this week with their bye week, and then they'll start getting prepared for Purdue. I would expect them to really start probably focusing up and getting geared towards the Big Ten championship. Of course, you don't want to sleepwalk that Purdue game and overlook it, but, and this is no disrespect, but it is, they're going to win that game maybe by 50, I think.
How
And
dare you?
well, I'm just this is opinion based, Greg.
Grant's hottest take in the history of the podcast.
Of course, yeah. Going out on a limb there, Grant.
And that's the thing is, when I left the game yesterday, I was a little sad, man. I was a little sad. Last game at the Rock, but you think about it, Indiana is hopefully going to play 2 more games in the state of Indiana away from Memorial Stadium that are still going to be home games. That Purdue game is going to be a home game. It's going to be more Indiana fans than Purdue fans. Purdue fans are done. They're all going to be at the basketball game that afternoon against Eastern Illinois, while all the Indiana fans are going to take over that Ross-Ade Stadium and pack that thing out for the Old Oak and Bucket game. So that's real promising for Indiana, is that they can play these next 2 games, one of them hopefully the Big Ten championship, where they can basically play 2 more home games away from their stadium, which I think is maybe a slight advantage.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it all comes back to me is take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you, because like you said, this team needs time away. They need health. You saw Kamara leave the game early yesterday. I mean, he didn't come back. There's a lot of attrition over these last 7 weeks, and I've not heard anything about Drew Evans' injury. I don't know if you have, Grant. I don't know what's going on there. When he went down last year was when he tore his Achilles, I think leading into the Michigan game. They were never the same offense after that. And he seems to be, as far as pass blocking, him and Carter Smith together really anchor that line. So without him, this offensive line has really, really struggled, and you saw it yesterday. So most importantly is getting him back and getting him right, and hopefully by December 6th, that's something that can happen.
I think Signetti said that they'll know more in a few weeks, and the absence of Elijah Surratt here in this last few weeks has definitely been evident, but thankfully Indiana just has so many other guys that can complement him. Charlie Becker, who had another great game yesterday, and they're so deep at the wide receiver position, but you're starting to see where their depth kind of can kind of get low there, especially on the offensive line. You're playing 2 second stringers on the O-line. Benson's still good. Coogan's still good. Smith's still good. And you have Zen Mahalski and Ajani out there who just were not getting that much time at the start of the season and are now starting and having to play. So Indiana's depth there at the O-line is getting a little exposed. But again, you take the bye week here to get healthy. I'm sure you're excited to go into the bye. That's why this game yesterday was so tough, because you have the emotional win against Penn State. You're looking forward to the bye week. Wisconsin, the game's just kind of You got Purdue coming up. You're going to the playoff. You're probably going to the Big Ten championship. This was a huge trap game yesterday, and it showed.
Well, the first half kind of looked like me on the Friday before I leave for vacation at work. I'm there, but they ain't getting much out of me. And that's kind of what Indiana looked like for the first half of that game. And all credit to Wisconsin. Sometimes you can say your team played like crap, but it's more so maybe the other team was making plays that they don't normally make. They had a 7-minute drive to start the game, ended in a missed field goal. Well, you really limit. Indiana only got 1 possession in the first quarter because of that, and they cashed it in for a touchdown. They didn't play, like you said, it was just like almost like a running clock high school game. The game was over when the other noon games were starting the fourth quarter, which was wild. So it was a low possession, wasn't a track meet. It was just kind of just a slug. It was a Friday before vacation performance. Indiana got the job done, and now they get to enjoy a couple weeks off.
Heck of an analogy there. I like it. The Friday before vacation.
Bellarmine told
Tonight, guys, we'll be back on Tuesday, a day early, for the IU report, and we will talk some more IU football and do a reaction to the Incarnate Word game on Sunday evening. Then we will be back on Thursday evening after the game against Lindenwood. Thanks so much to Grant and Mike, as always, and thank you so much for listening. If you like the podcast and want to do us a favor, there are two things you can do. Number one, hit the like button. That helps us get in the algorithms and have people hear about the Central Indiana Sports Report who have never heard about us. So it is a huge help if you could hit the like button. If we get 10 likes, it'll start to spread like crazy, and it will really help. Also, share this podcast with an IU fan in your life and help spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is here talking about what Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every single day. Thanks again. We'll be back on Tuesday with an IU report, and we will react to the basketball game on Thursday, and we'll have a double podcast next week for our preview with IU and Purdue. The old Oaken Bucket. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.